Hey everyone, welcome to welcome to UFO Hub Open Lines or UFO Hub live stream. I'm all getting confused because we had quite a fiery conversation, or at least I got all fired up on Telegram earlier, talking to Fab and Bradley. But unfortunately, it's not a topic that I can cover in great depth here because one, YouTube doesn't like alternative voices, and two, it's not necessarily UFO related, so I don't think it would do it any justice. But it was a lot to do with COVID, let's just say that. And so anyway, I'm just trying to get my brain wrapped up and back again, UFO related kind of subjects. So I wanted to just cover a few things. So last week we had a psychedelic show. I don't know if some of you noticed, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. I've been trying to upgrade slowly and trying to get better and better stream out. Unfortunately, if you're watching this on YouTube, they're not really helping a lot because their stream, no matter how high of a bit rate I send out, they always kind of leave it like a little fuzzy look to it. And that doesn't matter how good of a connection you have either. Twitch, on the other hand, is like nice and crisp, which I'm confused. Like it's the same stream going out. Why do, one platform, it takes care of the stream a lot better than the other. But anyway, those were part of the reasons why I was trying to upgrade some of the hardware and some of the software that I had. And so I think I was maxing out. Actually, I know I was maxing out my computer's abilities. It's not handling having to deal with Skype and Telegram and having OBS run with all these other things I have going on in the background. And then in addition, when I try to push out a high definition signal to the stream, and then of course trying to speak here in person, it created some off sync between the video and audio. So anyway, I reverted back to what I had, bumped it back down to 720p. I'm sorry for that. And so I'm slowly working on buttering up my wife to be generous to help at least allow me spend some more money on some other equipment to be able to give you guys some more quality content. So anyway, I apologize again for last week that we had that sync issue and whatnot. I'm working on it. I have it, thankfully, because it was here in the studio, I was able to record it independently, not using the software that I was using. So I just have to basically put all the different camera angles together and get everything basically into a nice little video where I can re-upload it again so you can watch that episode. It's basically myself, and my two other friends that basically just talking about pretty much all our experiences. Maybe not every single one of them, but as much detail as we could about psychedelics and what we've generally experienced on those. So I don't know if you would find that interesting, but if and when I ever find some time, I'm hoping to be able to upload that for you to watch. I also already had last week a webcast that I had recorded with David Curtis, and I'm also needing to get to that so that you guys can watch that, and I can also then upload that video because I appreciate David talking to me, and it would be a shame to just having to push it off longer and longer. But there's always things coming up that I have to take care of and handle. So I just haven't had much time to do as much editing, but hopefully I will be able to get to it soon. And I know there was one more thing I've been trying to cover. Oh, this Friday, I'm going to have Brad Johnson on, and he is basically channels being called Adronis. Maybe some of you know about him or have seen his channel. I've always subscribed to his channel and agree very much with what he's talking about. So I think it would be a great opportunity for us to chat and for me to just ask some questions. I don't know if he's gonna channel Adronis, but I'm hoping that we'll cover quite a variety of subjects. And I'm hoping that you'll also log in to be able to ask him questions directly over Telegram or just submit your questions on chat, which if, usually I try to get to everybody. As long as you make sure that you include the 3 little stars before your question, including today. If you have any questions, please make sure in the chat that you have the 3 little stars before you ask it. So anyway, everything seems to be going pretty good here. And I haven't gotten any confirmation yet whether or not I'm just checking real quick because I have my wife actually watching the stream to let me know if anything is off sync because it's difficult for me to tell and have to listen to feedback. Otherwise, I'm just going to be basically taken. Okay, she just texted. All good. I'll just be taking even more time trying to reconfirm is this in sync or not. But anyway, I always try to not necessarily compete with the bigger television and all of that. Obviously, there's no way I can, but I always try to take myself seriously and how I deliver the information, even if it's anything earth shattering, that at least you have good sound, good video. And especially in the very beginning, 10, 15 years ago, I always hated, watching people like doing interviews and they're having handheld cameras and trying to extract information from this whistleblower, and they're revealing some great information, but you can't hear them very well. It's grainy, and I'm just like, God's sake, just put it on a tripod, just invest $5 in this, cheap mic and mic them, so that way at least with whatever capability that camera has, at least you have given it a good chance to have a good audio and video recording for the rest of us to at least maybe start taking the subject a bit more seriously. But now we don't have to fight about it so hard because obviously the government has not denied it and they continue pushing it. Now, obviously, the next thing I want to cover with you guys, like the title said today, is the UFO mongering. Don't buy into it, because I don't know if some of you were aware that long time ago, even when I was, just really learning about all there is about these different UFOs and what's there to it. Of course, the stories about government and what their nefarious agenda is, as well, came about that they would potentially try to use the UFOs as a kind of a false flag to kind of mobilize and give them an excuse to say, okay, we need nukes in space, we need to get security, and basically kind of selling the UFO phenomena as the some sort of a threat, something for you to worry about. And I before the pandemic, I would have hoped that there's plenty of people out there can use their own brains and see and discern for themselves of what's going on. But it seems like a lot are a lot more prone to just jump immediately to fear. To immediately just go like, this is something to fear. I need protection. Please, government, protect me. And that's something I did not expect, especially with some Americans or most Americans, especially for Americans having this, rebellious mindset about them, and especially their history with governments and kings where, it's like whatever they don't like, it's like, fuck off, And so for them to just immediately bow down to what the government says and kind of follow along with it without questioning it, and just kind of closing their eyes to any kind of, abnormalities that usually you would think you would want to have an investigative journalist look up. Anyway, with that said, my hope for people not fear-mongering, is kind of dwindled quite a bit. So I want to, get a head start on this, because I don't know that you can start any earlier to just kind of try to tell people like, please, whatever happens, try to understand certain things. Whatever is happening with these UFOs is not a threat. And you have to understand it from, if I can maybe simply put it down, in the most simplest of terms, they're being here for a very long time. And if it ever comes out publicly, they've been around for a lot longer than possibly we humans have existed here. So it makes no sense. It's like, why look past the early stage of development of humanity? Why look past when we were still in caves? Why look, past the Bronze Age and, and the Stone Age, Bronze Age, and all these different ages, and then only on this cusp, on the precipice of us really becoming more and more technologically advanced, only now let's go in and take over the planet for our own gain. It makes no sense. If you've been here that long ago and your intentions are nefarious, you just take over when there's nobody, objecting to you being there, nobody to resist you, and so that's just a really quite simple dumbed down terms that I can just spell it out to most of you. Please keep that in mind. And then also, for 7 years, government to be constantly acting, oh, there's nothing there, there's these lights in the sky, they're just either weather balloons or swamp gas, and to then just now not go full hardcore. Yes, we're all for UFOs, but they're not denying it. Whatever videos are coming out, they're confirming that yes, this video was recorded at this day, at this time by this, I guess, soldier. I guess they're all, whether it's Navy, Air Force, whatever, they're all soldiers, part of the U.S. military. And, that's interesting. And then, of course, with the report, for them basically not having any conclusive answers, but explaining that there's a lot more there that they need to take in data, and they basically need more funding. And, of course, different equipment to record these different things. So with that being said, just try to find, I guess, more opinions. And we are just talking about that earlier in Telegram. It was interesting that one of my friends who I talk to a lot, and she's a psychic herself, she often, whether I ask for it sometimes or not, she would just tell me some things. It's like, I'm supposed to tell you this is relevant, and I was like, all right, whatever, it's like, it's cool, it's mysterious, and every single time it has come true at different times. Sometimes I expect it to come sooner than later, but whatever, that's besides the point. And so a person I trust very much, she had told me, be careful, you will be censored soon on YouTube. I was like, well, I'm not really talking about anything earth-shattering. Why? And she was saying that, it's something about UFOs. And this is the odd part, because people think that if you're psychic, you're immediately into UFOs and into all this other stuff. She's not. All she knows is just channeling, or at least I take that back, not channeling, whatever information, whatever she hears from these spirits on the other side, she conveys it to the person that she happens to be, in the presence of, and then she just goes about her life. And she also does do it for a living if you want to talk to her longer, but she's not one of those where it's like, I'm not telling you anything until you give me some money or something. I mean, she makes a living, but a living like everyone else does, to just simply be here and pay the bills and everything else. And so anyway, I was thinking about this. I was like, well, again, I've been talking and posting videos. Why now? And then it hit me, the same way that happened with COVID, to where only one narrative was allowed and the opposite one wasn't. It's going to ramp up more and more regarding UFOs when they start ramping up more information and releasing more, and especially if they choose, because it's not 100% clear yet, that at least coming from the government, I'll show you in a second here, newspapers, show otherwise, but it's, if they choose to go down that route, that direction of negativity, that obviously my channel will be on the opposite point of view of what they're saying. And then, of course, it would make sense to just get in touch with all the different Facebook, YouTube, and everything else, and just push that agenda like they have done with COVID, to where no other point of view is allowed, no other doctor's opinion is allowed. Only one story, one way. Everybody go this way, or as the American saying goes, my way or the highway. And so it all kind of connected to me, that I was like, well, why censor me now? And it made perfect sense. So I mean, I am taking precautions of expanding to other platforms. I'm looking at Rumble. Currently, I've set up an account. I haven't started uploading anything there yet, to just have another platform where I can at least upload videos. I don't know that live streaming would be possible there. I think like $100 a month you can, because they're not offering live streaming to everybody quite yet. They're just kind of ramping out that ability. So anyway, so with that being said, I'm just going to talk to people about UFOs in a constructive, positive manner that convey their experiences, that convey what they know, and basically convey it to you, and you take it or leave it. I'm hoping that you have enough brains to discern for yourself and make up your own decision. And at the end of the day, only you can take the actions in your life to go one way or the other. And so let me see if everything is still fine here. Okay. So anyway, I wanted to just give you a quick example of these different groups, or not groups, newspapers, sorry. So you have Yahoo News, how to prepare for an alien invasion since the U.S. government has not denied the existence. Then you have Reuters, how to prepare for alien invasion. You have, I read this one a while back from New York Post, UFOs could threaten U.S. security. Then there's MSN, alien invasion, latest 2020 threat as UFO sightings shoot up in New York. And then more stuff. I like the New York Post. I don't know why they're wanting to go. I guess it sells. But the point is, some of these articles are older, some of them are newer, but it's what people read. It's what people are exposed to. It's what they're exposed to, and that's how they get their information, because they see these different newspapers as sources, and they just take their word for it, which is fine, because a lot of times, I have to do that too. But something that I personally learned, and this is love him or hate him, during the Trump era, it was really interesting for me how I looked at news, because I was gone. I was kind of removed from Earth in so many different ways. I just lived my life, was in the woods, did what I had to do, and I was not connected in politics, didn't know what was going on. I just kept hearing this name constantly, and people were getting more passionate, some more angry, and all this other stuff about Trump this, Trump that. And it was, I would go, and of course, the news is a lot more readily available because you have cable, you have the big sites, it's immediately there, and I would watch it. I was like, oh my God, is this who we're going to elect as a president, right? And I just kept, the more you watch, you're just like, what in the world is going on? It's like I go away for a while, and then all of a sudden the world is upside down. And then I was like, well, hold on. So I went to C-SPAN, and so you can watch the whole conference of everything. They cover government, they cover Senate, House, whatever. And I would watch these different things, and it would take a lot longer. Instead, it would be so much easier if I can just get an excerpt and know that that's what was covered truthfully. But I would get the full context of what was said. And I would go and watch another press conference, and then another thing that was then what I learned now taken out of context. And I was like, what in the world is happening? Like, even the news has gone like full cuckoo, and they weren't even covering news properly, and so makes me very worried when I look at this now, about basically properly, as in what was actually said, the context about, as I mentioned, about Trump specifically. And so when I would watch these different news, it's like you would say, oh, well, these are trustworthy sources. So of course, I'll take their word for it. But only, for example, actually, I wasn't planning on this, but this one would work great. So for example, this, I think it was this one right here. Yes, the UFOs could threaten U.S. security, polls say after Capitol Hill briefing. And this is actually a quote that was given by one of the people that was briefed during this SCIF, or Sensitive Compartmented Information Facility, where there were basically, it's this committee that received, as they say, a hush-hush sneak preview inside this facility. And there were several quotes that were given from Sean Patrick, from Rep. Val Demings, from Adam Schiff, from Andre Carson, Mike Quigley, and then I'm trying to see if I can catch any, then Peter Welsh. Anyway, the point is there were many here, and so the one that sounded the most, I guess, catching, the most fear-mongering is then what they ended up using, and if you read it, the other ones, they would, they just were kind of, I guess, just for lack of a better word, bewildered by it, whereas in this one sounded more, more of a, probably a clickbait. Well, in essence, I would consider that clickbait because that's not the consensus of all the representatives that were being briefed. Because if I remember correctly, in this article, there's one representative that was not impressed at all, and just didn't find anything worth talking about this. I think it was, I think it was right here. It says, if I had to predict how the public will react to this, one word would be disappointing, he said. Added a clearly unimpressed Rep. Peter Welsh, Democrat from VT, I believe that's Vermont. I'm not on the edge of my seat. So obviously there was a variety of opinions, but again, they chose this. So in the next coming weeks, not heavily, but I'm going to have several different people that are going to be talking about this, this possible fear mongering that could come to fruition, because it's been talked about for at least past 20 years that I'm aware of, and that they were planning to do this to then use an excuse to have nukes in space to protect us, against aliens, and those nukes could easily be turned, on us. Talking about fear mongering, I'd rather not have any nukes in space. It's bad enough we have them here on the planet. But anyway, so I'm going to be talking to different people, some here in the studio, and it will be pre-recorded, so I don't have to mess with any sync issues. At least you'll have a nice recording going out, talking about that very thing. And some, of course, on Skype as well, where you would be able to ask them some questions, so that you just at least get that perspective. So you know what their perspective would be. You know all the fear and all the reasons why you should have it. And I'm hoping that I have enough people that will tell you otherwise, that said that this was already pre-planned, that this was known about for quite some time. Just don't buy into it. And just don't go for it. If there's any way that you can, if something needs to be voted on, to just vote no. If you're in the United States, I don't know how it necessarily runs in other countries, because sometimes certain bills or certain things, they want the people and each state's representative, their senators, to basically vote on something. So at least from the United States point of view, each state, we can call our representatives and say, hey, don't buy into the BS. So anyway, that's all regarding that. Let me see. Let me just See who else is. Wow, you guys are awfully busy already. Barely started. Let me get back to the top. If I can know how to use this darn tablet. There we go. Okay, Renee, welcome. Larry, welcome. Simone from Germany, hello. Larry, welcome. Fab22, welcome as well. Robert, welcome as well. Ida, welcome. Melissa, hi from Australia, welcome. Paul. So basically, we got a full chat today, which is good. All right, let's see if we have anybody here in Telegram. So if you want to chat with me, we don't necessarily have to cover this particular topic. You can, I guess, give me your opinion on it, but generally, I would like you to share your stories if you like, and whatever else you want to, because that's what Open Lines is here for. And so, if you want to basically share your stories, you can download Telegram on your phone or the computer. Go to the UFO Hub group. The specific link, it's in the description on either YouTube, Facebook, and I believe on Twitch as well. And just click on that link, join the group or the voice chat, and then you can simply chat with me, whether about the topic that I just covered or anything else you would like to talk about. And sometimes if you just want to use Telegram to just listen, that's perfectly all right. If you want to chat, the way it tells me that you're interested is simply click on that little fella that has a hand raised. They'll unmute you, at least tell me that you want to speak, and then I know to unmute you and basically talk to you then. All right, let's go back. Okay. I don't know what's going on, but it looks like this Mr. Catfish 2100, welcome. All right, no questions yet that I can tell on the chat, because as I said, remember to please use the 3 stars before your question, and then I know it's for me. Okay. I don't know if what you guys are talking about. Oh, yeah, I'm just reading over the chat. I don't know if you guys are fighting or something or what's going on, but I hope you guys can at least keep it civil and share whatever ideas you have here. Michael Burton says opinion on the recent disclosure. Well, I'd love to give you the opinion again, and like I said, you know, it's the disclosure is that they didn't deny anything, and I think we should at least be happy about that. The report is very short, pretty much actually in essence 7 pages if you take the intro and the appendix out, and so we should be happy with that part. Like I said, I'm just now hoping that they're not going to go down that route of now going to take this UFO and start basically using it as a, you know, something to be fearful about, something to worry about. Okay, we have GLP on Telegram. So let me unmute GLP. Okay, GLP, you are unmuted. Unmute yourself and please proceed.
Hi, I have a question. I don't know if it's off topic, but if you
There's no
look
off
into other
topic here.
things, okay, great. If you look into things like astral stuff, lucid dream, or you know, the state of consciousness where people think they're in the astral plane or half asleep, there seems to be a lot of stories about maybe seeing things unusual or alien to them. Do you know anything about that?
You mean seeing different alien entities?
And
Is that what you're referring to?
yeah, that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, what specifically were you interested in regarding that? Just my opinion on it, or what are you asking?
Your opinion, if you've had people share stories, not only astral, but maybe I don't want to get into psychedelics, but sometimes people have experiences where they feel like they're in a slightly different dimension and they can see things or entities or shadow people or
Right. Right,
grays,
right.
stuff like that. It seems like I like asking people their experiences, and I just heard enough people saying they've seen gray type beings either in when they're in an astral state or um, under psychedelics.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you were, if you missed it earlier. Just last Friday, I did an entire, I think, a little over 2 hour show on psychedelics. It's basically myself and two of my friends covering everything that we have experienced. And so, well, like I said, possibly few things that we forgot, because I think there was like one or two things that my friend texted say, "Hey, we forgot to talk about this." But it's what happened was I took it down because of the off sync. The camera and audio weren't in sync, and I was trying to stream live as I was trying to run a full show here. So I took it down. I have a full, better quality recording anyway. I will then put all the camera angles together, re-edit it, and then upload a whole new show on that. But speaking from personal experience, and of course, I've interviewed several people like Garner Schurhauser comes to mind. He talks about his astral projections and his experiences, and he's basically written 4 or 5 books based on that alone. And there's others that don't come to mind that I've interviewed. Um, I know a few others actually that basically kind of stopped and changed their entire life. They redirected them to convey this information, and so at this time, they're elderly, but at that time, the most feasible way they could reach the masses was to write a book. It's unfortunate. A lot of people always think that if you write a book, all you want is money, but all they knew is to how this is the best way to concisely put a story down and reach everyone with it, with whatever message they were supposed to convey. But it's interesting that it's not just grace. There's that in their experiences and mine, it really depends on um, almost like which vibration you're on and what your intentions are, that based on your experience you will make those connections. And in my personal experience, I've had experiences with grace in the astral realm. I've also had experiences with shoot, escapes my memory right now. Arcturians. It was what was really interesting is when I was meditating, and this was after I learned that you can basically achieve or go to these different realms by simply remembering where you were while you were specifically, let's say, on the DMT. There's a frequency that you go to, and you can, if you focus hard enough, you can remember what that felt like, and simply looking and remembering uh, that feeling again takes you to that dimension. But what was interesting is for some, everything was in this weird symbolic way. I saw these huge apartment complexes that reminded me of when I lived in Germany, and they're kind of like U-shaped, where you have just one main gate where you can enter, and then you go to your apartment. Well, I mean, you have several hundred apartments there, and so there were all these apartment complexes, about, I don't know, hundreds of them hovering in the air. Well, it's like, okay, and so one of them landed. And so I walked into one of them because that I knew how to navigate through there because I grew up in one of those, and there was one specifically, I saw this little being that immediately reminded me of a smaller child, although it looked more of purplish, large head, large eyes, but more childlike. So I went up to it foolishly, kind of like, "Hey, little kid, are you lost? Where are your parents?" And I quickly realized I am not talking to a kid, and this being was very wise, and anyway, so the long story short was I whatever conversation was happening, I felt like I couldn't partake. Like I was having a conversation, but I couldn't focus on it. And I've talked about that before. But anyway, I had to basically leave this this apartment complex, and as I was leaving it, then this apartment complex kind of went back up into the air, and I just opened my eyes. It wasn't waking up. It was simply like I was already awake, and my eyes were closed, and now they're open. There was no stretching and yawning and all of that. I was wide awake, and not that that's not possible from coming up from a dream, but to have that often, which in my experience happened, it just told me that I wasn't necessarily sleeping, but was more on this different focus level. Well, anyway, I opened my eyes and I just kind of was like, "Wow, what was that?" And I just in the middle of my head was this female voice and just said, "We are the Octurians." And I was like, "Okay," There was nothing I don't know what I was supposed to do with that. I just know I had the experience, but felt more like, hey, this is how, just make a, this is just for us saying hello, and that was pretty interesting from my personal experience. Now, I'd encourage you to watch some of the videos because I have hours and hours on the channel of interviewing, obviously, Garnet and some others. I believe. I'm trying to remember the name now. Annie Stillwater Gray. She's also on the UFO channel. Also had some experiences too, and so um, it's definitely a more subtle way of communicating, if I can say that. It's basically makes it just a little bit less stressful compared to what it was like in person, and what the fears having to go through those, and the effect of these different energies. It definitely was a lot less, a lot less of that.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask another question?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, there's no
Okay.
one else that raised their hands, and if they want to speak, we'll adjust our time or how long we'll talk. If they simply raise their hand, then I know they want to speak or share their story or ask a question or whatever. But otherwise, it's just so far only you did. So please go ahead.
In my meditations, and now it happens usually, before bed as soon as um yeah, so to be honest, I didn't well, some of these things I didn't really believe in so much, but I, did research and started looking into it, and like vibrations. It started subtle months ago, little vibrations. I thought it was my imagination, but now it's very obvious. And
Hmm.
a lot of it happens in parts of my body where there's no muscles. It feels like there's a golf ball bouncing around in the middle of my brain.
Right.
And does that happen to you, or do you know, and it usually coincides with ringing in the ears. And sometimes if it's really intense, it'll turn into eye fluttering.
Right. It's no, the experiences you've had is definitely what I've had, and I wish my friends were here too. They could confirm the same. It's basically um, whatever mindset you put yourself in while you're meditating. Even though it just seems like to every person, like, okay, I'm just closing my eyes. There's not much happening there. There's a great power in intention, you know and even though we just we're aware of our room, and we are aware of that we're laying there, and we closed our eyes. We're actually starting a process of shifting to a different reality, even though if it's not that big of a different reality. When you open your eyes, it's still the same place, still looks like your room. That shift has a different frequency, and sometimes depends on how much of a shift you make. The intensity of it would either be mild or increase greatly. I personally sometimes have like these little pinpricks on my face, where it seems like the small needles are kind of just poking me, and it's a very light, nothing painful or anything. It's just enough to where initially it always made me want to scratch my face because it's an itch. But then over time I just learned to just let go and just relax and not concentrate on just the scratch itself, but just let it go. And so when that shift has happened enough, it just it basically allows you to just whatever comes to mind, whatever just enters your mind out of nowhere, is usually the spontaneous communication from whoever, whatever it is, doesn't matter. The point is that it could be an image, it could be a phrase that just comes to you that you feel like you need to say it out loud. It could be even just an actual voice, which is a lot more startling. But that's the time when we need to relax even more, to just finally, okay, we allow it to happen, whatever needs to happen. Now what's coming? Sometimes it might take a long time, weeks, days, who knows, for you to actually get to that point. But it's like the whole point is not to judge yourself or to say I failed, or God forbid to go even to the point of I'm a failure, because that's the worst part anyone could do is start beating themselves up for it. But simply just allow to come whatever comes, and then just when it's done and over with, write it down. Write down date, time, and say, okay, at this time this happened, at this time I saw this image, blah blah blah. And a lot of times, either weeks or months down the road, and sometimes even sooner, things happen, or occurrences that happen, to where you get a confirmation to what came to you at that moment, or sometimes even years to go, oh, I remember I had this experience, but thankfully you've written it down, and then you can remember what was going through your mind at that time. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. Thanks. Is there anything, if you wanted to explore further, that could enhance it? If you wanted to, like, if you feel like something spiritual is trying to make a connection, but it's you're enough that something's there, or something's off, but it's not, nothing's coming through. Um, is there something that you recommend? I've tried binaural beats. I've tried increasing my meditation, changing my thoughts. I cut out meat. I don't know if that has to do it.
Well, the
Maybe
point, yeah,
different
can I
time.
just, right. I just want to ask you this though. You have to kind of know what your goal is. Because a lot of people, when I was still in San Luis, we actually were talking about this very much, and I asked the same question. Everyone wants to traverse these different levels, go wherever this thing can go, and I understand the curiosity, because I was at one point there myself. But then something that once you kind of been there and you come back, here's the question. Everyone
Mhm.
immediately wants to go to the 12th grade. Everyone wants to be the senior in class, and but they're kind of missing out the all the different grades that lead up to it, that they gives you the experience, the wisdom to give you a context of, then eventually when you know something, you have more of a deeper understanding. And so instead of just wanting different level for the sake of a different level. I'm not saying that you do. I'm just saying in general. It's important to see, okay, what are you looking for? Are you looking for proof that there's something out there? Are you wanting some kind of confirmation? If it's basically, if you go in with an intent, and I'm not saying it has to be like entirely planned out, but just a general intent, like I would like to meet a being or I would, whatever, I want some kind of message or whatever, go in with a purpose, and then basically you'll get more, out of that. If you simply go to meditate and relax, which is wonderful too, it will actually just help your body just kind of get back in sync, and whatever happens in the background without you being unaware, without you being aware of it, just let it happen. Because so many times I would go in and I would, I know this sounds silly and I don't expect everyone else to believe this, because my life has been so fucked up in so many ways, and beautiful ways, that I can't expect every single person to believe what happened. But, I would lay there and I would get these twitches, right? And people can excuse that for, you're about to go to sleep and all this. But no, I'm wide awake and I have these, again, these prinkles, like these little needles in my face, that made me, tells me there's something here, something is happening, and then I would, my leg would go all crazy and all this different stuff. And then the next morning, finally, after so many years, that right leg that I messed up when I was, rollerblading when I was 15, 10 years later, finally it stopped hurting, and I wasn't going for that. I wasn't asking for that. It was just something that I was always in pain with. And I, even when I was meditating, I wasn't, trying to, say, please heal me or whatever, but I just simply, by meditation, without really asking for anything, this occurred, which was, I don't know who it was, I don't know what it was, and but I like to think that there's some kind of, interaction that I'm not aware of that is going on. And so it helped me, so again, it's okay even if you don't know, but generally, if you're wanting something, go in with a specific, purpose, state a specific, fact, this is what you want, and then you'll get more out of it. It makes more sense, otherwise, like I said, if you can go in without any specific purpose, and then things like what I just explained happen, I didn't ask for it, but hey, cool, and so it's really difficult to pinpoint it down that, hey, if you do this, or if you turn left 2 times and quickly right and then lay down, you will get this experience. At the end of the day, it's your intention, and even with regarding the food, I noticed that the food itself is not necessarily a inhibitant or a gateway. All it is what is it that you took in that either is more in line with your body or not. So I noticed if I have something sugary, it immediately shuts my body down, and obviously over the years, I've been trying to avoid sugar, but, it's not conducive to try to go meditate and then take in sugar right before that, right? And then same thing with, with meat. It doesn't matter if it's red meat, deer meat, whether you're vegan or not. The point is, what are you giving your body at that time to really give you the most attention? I usually noticed if I just fast, that gives me the most focus, most for anything, whether waking life, things that I need to do, or whether it would be a meditation. A fast is usually keeps you in attention. You can hold a focus longer, and to achieve whatever you need to achieve.
Yeah. The meat thing actually came up because a couple of years ago, I went out of my way to, and I had a few conversations with people that had the near-death experience where something happened and they had an accident or something, and it just seemed to come up a couple times, and I thought I'd
Right.
give it a go. Well, I'm actually in Missouri. What's the name of the group in St. Louis? And then I'll let you go.
Well,
Are they
actually,
still around?
there's several. There's so one was called Coasties, and there were I used to actually, on the website on ufohub.net, I used to have a whole within the St. Louis area, within like maybe 300-mile radius. If any group that I knew of, I would put their meeting time and date down. But I stopped doing that for quite a while, because it just became difficult to try to upkeep with. Sometimes they change locations and whatnot. But anyway, so one is Coasties. Ginger is the head person there, and it's the. Are you familiar with St. Louis?
Yeah.
Okay, do you know the bowling alley on Sunset Lane or Avenue?
Ye-
It's
Yeah, I can find it.
okay. Yeah, they have a room in the back of their room. They basically, have this room that can maybe seat 50 people, and they, I believe, were meeting once a month. I think it was the second
Mhm.
Monday of the month or so. So I don't know if they continued their meetings there. But then, of course, there was another meeting that was held by Debbie Ziegelmeyer, and she's the Missouri MUFON director, and it was at CJ Muggs at Webster Groves. I can't pronounce it right. If that sounds familiar, you know where
Yeah,
Webster is.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So
I'm sorry.
Coasties and there's a MUFON.
Yeah,
Coasties and
Costis
MUFON.
and MUFON, correct.
And if anyone's listening, in LA where I've lived for a long time, they have a group called UPARS, UPARS, and they used to be MUFON, but then they wanted to talk about paranormal things outside of just UFOs. And I've been going for years, and they have very interesting speakers fly in from all over the world, and they post all their videos on YouTube. So there's a UPARS channel, and for years you can go back, and all these obscure esoteric things. They have a long history of stuff. So if you're not familiar with that, that's pretty
Yeah,
neat
that's
too.
interesting. I noticed every MUFON I've been aware of, they always do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think MUFON headquarters might kind of frown upon that because they try to stick to the nuts and bolts, which what the organization has always been about. So I guess if they're trying to portray a certain image, I can't blame them. But I was grateful that even this MUFON, they didn't go that direction too much, but they would have a lot of interesting researchers, and any recent sightings that were happening, they covered these. So, but yeah, no, I tried even to get some of the meetings, obviously online, and there's so many people, especially, I don't know if they feel about it the same way now, but they're just like, no, I don't want anybody knowing that I'm going to these meetings. I was like, all right, well,
Yeah,
I
I
can't
understand.
help you for you, complaining that there isn't enough, openness from the government. Here we are, we can't do it ourselves.
Yeah, and I found that took a while, but after opening it, just at the people, they'd have speakers, and then I just talk to the people sitting next to me, like, why are you here? And
Yeah,
then some of them don't have any experiences, but a lot of them do. And they're not they're not going under the camera and sharing it. There's just a
right.
lot of stories out there. Most people keep it to themselves, and they're not gonna you know put themselves out there. But
Well, the two groups, I can promise you, they're not going to keep things to themselves. I mean, you get to be pretty good friends. And I remember in 2012, a quite large group, from that meeting, we all went to the Ozark Mountain UFO conference in 2012. And we went together. It was fun. It was down here in Eureka Springs in Arkansas, and so it was pretty fun to just go with like-minded individuals. But yeah, if you go to those, I promise you that you're gonna have some people that are very opinionated.
all right. Hey, thanks for your time.
And no problem. You take care. All right. So the next person I'm gonna unmute here is Argo. Argo, you are unmuted on my end. I'm mute you on yours, and please go ahead.
Is that unmuted there?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Okay.
How
How are
are
you doing
you?
this evening?
Oh, just fine. Thanks for being on.
I like this new platform you're doing here.
Oh, thank you.
Quite welcome. You're a smart guy, and I've watched you for years down there in Eureka Springs put on, your UFO hub symposiums and stuff like that for many years. And I'm a ufologist myself. I've been in ufology for about 35 years since I was a young man and had an
Mhm.
experience. And I liked the subject that you had written on the YouTube link, so I thought I might join and see if maybe I could be of some good banter with you.
Well, I mean, for 35 years, I'm sure you have some stories of your own. Is there anything particular you would like to share?
Oh wow, that's a deep one, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, no one else raised
Well,
their hand, so you have the floor for now. So please don't hesitate.
okay, so you basically kind of stated that that people shouldn't buy into the UFO, like aggressive UFO terror hype, right?
Right.
Okay. I agree with that, but I could also bring in hundreds of tales of caution that can also demonstrate that the alien civilization that's here and been here for a very long time doesn't take any particular care for us affectionately like we would anything else, maybe. There are lots of incidences of this through ufology. Um, Women have been inseminated and then had the ovums taken from them enough times, say through decades, that their female parts wind up with cysts and all sorts of complications. There are all sorts of complications from the alien program that
Right.
women suffer all the time. And I know it is within their grasp to perform miraculous healings of things. They show up in the lore over the decades, but they are very, very, very few. And they're usually very self serving. Um, they'll watch abductees die of cancer and abduct them all the way into the latter stages of cancer, too. So, are they aggressive? No, I don't believe that they're, quote, aggressive in the way a human might think that they are aggressive. But they are obtuse enough to our condition that their actions can definitely seem to be callous or without feeling,
Right.
because they are.
I don't want to distract you, but can I comment to that?
Yes, and
Okay.
ask any question you may have too.
Well, no, what I was generally going to say, I don't know that there's any, at least in the beginning, and nuts and bolts researcher that's worth their salt if they're not, at least in one way or another, um, aware of, for example, David Jacobs and his books, you know,
Yes,
and
sir. Very good.
right. And so, of course, that's kind of like the heavy reading especially for every beginner. It's just in my personal experience, and this is the part where, um, where I always urge people to kind of try to go down the same, I guess, quote unquote, spiritual route, like I did, to try to understand
Hmm.
yourself more, and eventually more connections and explanations will be given down the road. Is that, you know, there were entire contracts and agreements that I was not aware of that I partook in, and only when it was time for me to know was I aware of them, and it's one of these things to where
Right.
we use our mind as humans to judge everything through this human lens, compassion, help where you can help, and all these commonsensical things. But when it comes to these higher time frames, for lack of a better word, sometimes, in this weird and pardon my French, fucked up way, is that some people have really, chosen these very interesting, painful lives. Not saying that you can't be compassionate, but when it comes to these different alien groups, they see that higher connection and they don't rob them from those experiences, because from the higher point of view, this life is only here for a very short time, and so to have this very valuable experience, however painful it may be, is very, useful to the soul overall, and that is what I found to be the case. And I wouldn't have said this otherwise if I didn't had my own personal experience with this. This is not just reading from some book. This is my own personal experience about, realizing that there's entire agendas for every person's life, and only, Dolores Cannon actually, kind of said it the best. There's some people that would come to her and she would do these regressions to where, based on what these people were having problems with, if it was to benefit to them to release certain things, they would release them. And I personally have seen at least 10 different people in person that they have talked to me and basically just said I was dying. I was only had a few months left. I saw Dolores Cannon, and after literally one session, because one session is all you really need. Many things like, oh, you have to keep coming back. No, one session is to literally work out whatever it is that you came here for. But there are others that simply, when she put them under this, this source that came through said, no, this is what they're here for, to learn, and this will not be taken away, whether it be pains or other things, and that's the part to where, it's so hard to take somebody's word for, because we want this proof. And I don't blame people for this. We want that proof. We want to see it, we want to hear it, we want to know it. And like I said, I wouldn't have believed in myself if I didn't have this experience. So speaking from my own experience, that's the only thing I can tell you regarding your comment about the different alien groups. It would make so much, it would make life so much easier if they can just simply, hey, well, you used the eggs, you done what you needed to do. Well, help a brother out, and so
Sadly, I don't think that's in their agenda. There's proofs that are here on this planet that show that not only maybe so. I like to tease one of my friends.
I'm sorry,
Sit outside
Argo,
nearby.
is it you were a bit distant? Can you maybe come just a little closer to Mike, please? I appreciate it.
Okay. How about now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, so I like to tease one of my friends. I've been in this subject for years and years and years, so all my friends know that I'm the UFO Bigfoot nut, And so I like to tease one of my friends who's from Oklahoma. That I like to point down at my foot, and I go, that thing right there. And he always knows what I'm referring to, and that's a dinosaur trackway that's 250 million years old. And it goes on for some, I don't know, 300 yards or a quarter mile, something like that. And beside it, maybe 80 yards away or something like that, is a trackway of a human foot. And there's no mistaking. It is absolutely a human foot, and it is absolutely a dinosaur print. And they're in the exact same strata.
Mm-hmm.
And examples of this go on and on and on in a man's work called Dr. Michael Cremo. But my point was merely this, that my friend
Was
says
that
to me,
what was the book called? Was that from the Forbidden History? Is that what the name of it is?
Forbidden Archaeology.
Forbidden Archaeology. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I can send you a picture of it if you'd like. It's about as thick as your shoe.
Yeah,
It's
I've always
reading.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant a picture of that. I always heard of that book, never read it myself. But yes, if there was a picture of that in it, I'd love to get it. You can simply send it over Telegram so everyone else can see too. I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I can show you other things that I probably have a picture of. I don't know how to send it on this platform, but there's a hammer that was found in rock, and it has an iron head on it, and it is literally encased in 300 million year old strata, and the wooden handle is coalifying to lend further proof of its ancientness. But my point, the reason why I did this is to give a small example of how we've been here in the past. whatever it was, I like to point down at my foot and go, I tell him, Scott, nope, I'm not saying we were here. I'm saying that foot right there was here 300 million years ago. Whatever was above it, I have no clue. But that foot, the same thing that's on my leg, was here 300 million years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get internalized truths like that, and the more you read of the book, the more you understand that all of those truths are real, then you wonder how it is over hundreds of millions of years that they have allowed us not to know or understand. That is exacerbated, in my opinion, in my view, by scientific things that are being found about our DNA, like the telomere capping of our lifespan.
I'm sorry, the what?
Geneticists,
You said what?
there is an area, and I think gene number 2, Dr. Greg Braden, Gregg Braden, Braden, has basically kind of lead ground broke this work to the world in the Gaia platform. But what it amounts to is that you have, say, a fuel cell. We'll call it a fuel cell, and it sits on your genetic DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And it's truly what determines how long a person lives, because it continues to feed out biological material that allows the human body to then reproduce cells and so on and so forth. And when that reaches its end, as it reaches its end, you then begin to age, or the collagen in your skin begins to go, you begin to turn gray in your hair, stuff like that. Well, geneticists now understand that this capping of each end of it, this capping that's been put on it, this genetic cap, is artificial. It's apparent to geneticists that it's artificial. So when you take 2 pieces of evidence on each end of the spectrum, one is they seem to have at one point limited our lifespan, and 2, we seem to have been around for hundreds of millions of years. I find that in those hundreds of millions of years, they've had opportunity to tell us, and maybe something such like, well, the Tower of Babel incident that spoke of in the Bible. Maybe that's the incident that got our telomere capping put on us. Maybe that's where we went from being the 900 years of Noah to the 65 years that we have today.
Mm-hmm.
So I try not to think of them as benevolent in any way. I see what they do in science. They literally have craft as big as planets that sit outside our star. So if they're here on that level, then they've had their opportunity to tell us. That's one of the things I heard you say was the like the Federation of aliens or planets or whatever. It's something that I have a very hard problem with. And it's not because of any knee-jerk reaction to it. It's after over a decade, really, of, well, maybe even more than that, of trying to make sense of that idea. And the only thing I can come down to is
was it something today?
real.
I'm trying to think of one because usually I don't use that word. Was there something talked about today? The Federation.
Yeah, well, you said you said the Arcturians.
Right.
The
This was in
Arcturians.
reference
Okay.
to one particular race.
Right. No, I understand that.
Yeah,
I
it wasn't.
understand
Yeah,
that.
it wasn't a like a group of them or anything like that.
Well, and to use the researcher who is absolutely my favorite in the world, Dr. David Jacobs,
Mm-hmm.
and another friend of his, Bud Hopkins, who's passed. They in all of their work never found ever that there was any other real alien species but one. And that doesn't even include the gray beings, because the gray beings seem to be a created species. Like, I'll tell people here something that are listening. You're getting ready to learn something really insider right now. We know how they eat. We know how grays take sustenance. It's through a brown paste that's put on their skin, and they're left for a certain amount of time to absorb this material. And that's how they eat. But yet they have a nose and a mouth and ear holes. And they don't speak. Well, it's because they're not actually a being that can recreate, as far as real ufology can tell.
Was that?
Now,
Can
the
you give me a little bit more information on that? Like, was that from a researcher, or how do I just want to know?
that that was firsthand accounting to one of the world's biggest researchers.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, in private, I would be willing to give you that answer, but I've set it up there. But so, I forget where we were going. Okay. So the different species. It seems as though no matter when or where an abductee is in the extremely rare moment to question a being's origin or their lineage. Lineage seems to come about more easily in a question as they're more oftentimes dealing with a child, a hybrid child that has something to do with a human on board. But in the very few times we've been able that good civilian scientists and accredited scientists have been able to get any kind of answer about these things, it seems that basically everything is created. In Dr. Jacobs' work, a woman says she has an inordinate amount of mental prowess to be able to resist the aliens when they come to get her. Not so much that she can break free of their complete control, but enough that she can resist, and they grow tired of it. She says that I won't leave unless Jesus Christ says that I need to go with you. And lo and behold, in a few minutes, they produce Jesus Christ. And she goes on with him. Well, in further questioning of her, she's asked, well, what did Jesus look like? Well, what did he have on? Well, he had on a jumpsuit. Really? And what color was his hair? Blonde. And what color was his eyes? Blue. And did he say anything to you directly? No. You see, these are the things that they regularly use to pacify a human into performing the action in which they would like you to perform, whether that is laying down, getting on board, don't be so cantankerous, stand here quietly. So, in having that scientific evidence that nearly every being seems to be created and that there's only one being who seems to be truly in charge, and that's the insect-like ones who are very rarely seen, but many times are in the back of the UFO or standing quietly off to the side. There's been very few interactions with them through the years, but people do have regular interactions with them because of the great quantity of people who are in the program. Now, to add just a little more embellishment to this idea, that there is no federation of beings, that there is only one true alien, that all genetic creations below it are just that below it, I would like to add to this. These people, this civilization can sit outside our sun and craft the size of planetoids in our solar system. You go all the way back to the early 80s when the Phobos 2 mission took several photos of the giant disk coming around into Mars orbit. They've been here for a very long time, and they have a way of doing things. Okay. And to me, I don't think that there is room in our tiny little solar system for more than one galactic superpower. Because if there were a federation of beings or planets, civilizations, or galaxies, I would like to hope that somewhere along the hundreds of millions of years, that just one person would play pundit for us and stand for the human race and demand that we come out of the great darkness that we've been in for seemingly so very long.
Do you want me to call you Argo?
That's fine.
Okay. So, I know exactly what you mean, but let's just go back a little bit here. So let's say there's somebody that can't necessarily prove it to themselves 100% through their own experiences, right? Because that's the best way to get a confirmation of something. You hear something, somebody tells you about something, you have experience of your own. It's a perfect way, I think, to just be kind of either convinced of it or not. The
Right.
So taking that out of the picture for the most person, one thing that I in the very beginning noticed, and this was actually around 2012, because David Jacobs and Dolores Cannon were at the conference at the same, during that same time, if my memory serves right, either 2012 or 2013. And what's very interesting is that them two are they almost like, I would say more David Jacobs, not so much Dolores Cannon. Actually, her not at all. Not trying to be nice about it. It's just how she simply was, from my memory. He was very condescending towards her level of research, because the way he would do the way he written his books was he would put people under, and then they would go through these traumatic experiences and recalling exactly what had happened. Right. But then it would stop there.
Right.
It would stop there, and then he would just write it out. I hope he would write it out as accurately as possible. Whereas in a lot of Dolores Cannon's works in her books, you can see she goes much deeper beyond that level, to where now, even though the mind and the person has experienced this traumatic experience, there is a deeper understanding of what just occurred. It's almost like, not comparing humans to dogs, but if we take a dog to the vet and have to subject him to these different things that we have to subject the dog to, the dog just doesn't have the understanding. Now, I'm not saying that we as humans cannot have it. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just trying to use a very inadequate analogy here, is that the dog might whine and bark and all these things because he might see that doctor as a threat, and what in the world that I'm doing here, it's a different place than what I'm usually used to. But then there's a generally like, hey, you were just given a shot for worms, or you were just and then not or just a checkup. It doesn't always have to be something that beneficial. And
Right.
it's something. What was interesting is that not only did each one of these people then go that deep down to where they could recall the experiences, but now they were at ease. They were understanding that, hey, at this time, whatever time was, whatever that space was, I made an agreement to do this. And that my body, the personality that I'm going to be playing, whether it's Betty, Martha, Joe, Jim, whatever, it's not going to remember this during this lifetime unless, you're put under, And so, of course, when these different things go through, and this is the several things that I was basically hearing about, and this is just channeled information that a lot of people can find out on their own, is that the grace at that time, they were just so alien to us, basically meaning they lost all, because the other theory about alien, about the grace in general, is that not the robotic grace. I'm talking about the taller grace, that they're actually humans from a different dimension that basically have bred the humanity out of themselves. Were you aware of that?
Yeah. Actually, there's been a couple of people that I respect from the past who've written works about it, who have compelling ideas about that subject.
Right.
I personally do not think that they are from there. I don't think they're us. I think that they are exactly what they told Betty Luca.
Okay. Well, no, I'm just, for the sake of this conversation, I'm just trying to, make sure you can follow me what I'm trying to get to next. Because of this lack of emotions, for example, especially when it comes to, I keep forgetting which one was specifically, but there would be this, this was I believe a guy that was abducted, and he was just screaming his head off. He was just screaming his head off. I mean, he's bound down to this table. It's all, obviously he's staring at these weird beings, and one of them just gets close to his face and just kind of like telepathically, and in this, what telepathically kind of also came across in this dumbfounded way was like, why are you screaming? It's and they're that not related to the human emotion. Now, from my understanding, and I have no proof of my own, is that was corrected. that they understood that they were causing this other level. It's kind of like us doing some stuff
They'll
inadvertently
ask.
to let's.
They'll ask a lot. They'll ask, "What can we do to help you stop screaming?" Or they'll ask,
Right.
"What can we do?" Or we're not going. They'll even scold people, kind of in a matter-of-factly type of way, like, "Why do you scream like this? You know we're
Right.
not going to
Right.
hurt you." Now that's an alien taking into account that he's done abducted this person 450 times. They should
Right.
know by now that they're not going to be killed. The problem is that when they leave the ship, they blank them every time. And this person
Right.
may be one of the people that it works on so incredibly well that they have no idea that they're an abductee. They just live a strange life.
Right, and I've known a few like that that just even join meetings that say I have an inkling. I have no, they would come home and they would have like these weird markings on them, and they just based on that make the
Yep.
assumption, but they actually have no recollection, and at that point that I'm aware of, weren't even regressed, to see if they can recall something. All I'm saying is I think where we would just simply differ in our opinions is that I get that part too. I totally get that because that was the first 10 years that was pretty much my life. But that what followed after that is this different understanding to what had occurred. So I could kind of drag that same experience to say, no, I'm a victim. What you did to me is unacceptable, and so blah blah blah. Or if and when eventually people have the same experiences that I did, I hope not, because it required a near-death experience in my case to realize, oh, an agreement was made, and
And
in
and
this
I and
particular.
I want abductees or experiencers like yourself to have that exact same experience, because if they have the experience of being frightful or injured or scared, then they're not going to share. And what we need is for everybody who's a contactee to be in contact with what's actually going on with them and to share, so that worldwide we can learn more about this.
Right. Well, see,
You know,
this
it's
is the part that not a lot of people are going to put themselves in that space to where they just willingly go through something
that's
traumatic.
right.
And I have to just to clarify here, what I'm talking about, it wasn't a specific example regarding aliens. It was something about my parents, regarding the life that I was having with them, and how I basically just was in this total victim mode and blaming them for all the wrongs in my life, only to
Hmm.
realize that I had literally begged them to be the way they are so they can become the person that I am today, because my higher self, if you're believe into that kind of thing, and understood,
I
knew
do.
why it was coming here and what it needed, how far it needed to be squeezed to just mold the person into the personality to be that I am today, and it was important for my higher self to be that way. Of why exactly, I'm still not 100% understanding of that, but it was enough for me to go, I remember them. Yeah, I remember that now. I see it now, and I just moved on. It like that hatred went away. I'm not saying that we need to just immediately just I mean, for a person that
Embrace
just
them.
went through, yeah, what I'm saying is for a person that went through something traumatic, like a God forbid a knife wound, or just watch somebody just kill the entire family in front of him, or something really traumatic in that way. I'm not saying like, oh, just forgive them, it's all good. It's like, what I'm saying
Right.
is, yes, you have these feelings for a reason. You need to work on whatever you're working on for a reason. It's like, and but the point is that in this weird, fucked up way, we've chosen to be here to play this very hard game called life that we live here on Earth. And it involves these many facets, whether it would be in personal lives or alien involvements or any of these other things, and so that's
So
what.
through the years, I've been involved with several abductees. So,
Right.
it's you don't get out on a billboard and you announce, "Hey, I'm a ufologist. Look at," you know what I mean. It's just not the way it's done. But over the years, I've been involved with many abductees. Most recently, I struck up a friendship with a man from Australia last year. Now, going back to Dr. Jacobs, Dr. Jacobs to me has the tip of the spear information on what is to come kind of next in ufology, but he has some glaring blind sides. Glaring blind sides. Quickly, I'll touch on the one with Dolores. Dolores deals with something that I believe that the aliens don't have much control or even understanding of. And that's what it is inside of us, our soul, that quantum, whatever it is that makes up us, that sometimes gets left over here on this planet when someone dies. I don't think the aliens have any real understanding at all about that. And Dolores was more of a person who dealt with mental and physical powers. And Doc Jacobs is very clinical, as you know. You've met the man, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He's very clinical, you know. So if it's outside of his realm, he can't really consider it in any intelligent way because he's done no groundwork. Now that's where people like myself, who have had to encompass everything to try and understand everything, to put it in its box. And I don't understand everything in any way. That kind of sounds pompous. I completely don't. But there are many things that I have come to understand that I'm afraid that many people do not. And one with Doc Jacobs is that Bigfoot is a real being, first of all, and that it is seen way too often around the conjunctures of lights and strange orbs. Abductees have them coming to their house, tapping on windows, leaving gifts, taking things. And in the last 20 years, it has ramped up incredibly, like incredibly. And so to try and talk to Doc Jacobs about that would be impossible.
Well, I mean, look at the way I see these different points of view. It's kind of like, look at the scientists, right? Or let's forget the scientists. Let's just say the nuts and bolts researchers, right, of ufology, and then their
like
view
myself.
on right, and then the view. Well, not everybody, the hardcore nuts and bolts researchers, and then their view on abductions, for example. They don't even the most that I've met personally, unlike yourself, they don't even consider that at all. To them, that's just another woo-woo thing that somebody was, having daddy issues and wants more attention, And
yeah, but with a little bit of intelligent thought, it's really easy to tie the two together. Really,
right. But what I'm saying is, there's many different levels to just to finish this thought. So it's the same way that you have this level between this nuts and bolts and abductions. There's also then these abductions, contact, and then the higher self, higher aspect of yourself, which is what we call consciousness or God or whatever you want to call it. And so, but these connections have to be drawn slowly and over time and through hard work on your own. To simply learn that from a book, I think it would be very difficult because it requires. I mean, I can, for example, I use this example all the time. It's a silly example, but love, right? You can read all the books about love all you want, but it's until you have the experience of love yourself, does it put everything into perspective, right? I've said that so many times, and it's like the best example I can just really cut through any kind of explanation is really convey it to everyone in that way. It's like then they know what I exactly mean. It's like when you lead up to that point, it's like, you can go to seminars, how to meet, people, how to be more attractive, whatever, but it's like until that feeling overcomes you, it's basically like you become the person that dances to music that no one else hears, and that's what it's almost like understanding the different levels to contact and aliens and all these other interdimensional
it
things
can be very lonely. I've noticed. My friend in Australia, his contact level is absolutely over the top. He's got rods that fly around him. I'm just going to say it because it's fact. Bigfoot leave him gifts outside his home on the beach. It's very, very involved. And wow. So I feel like each contactee in their 20s is kind of manic about the situation. And then in their 30s, they're starting to get an idea. And in their 40s, they begin to be comfortable with it. And in their 40s and 50s, they get to where they can almost speak about it really to people, And I think it's just the inherent trauma the unnaturalness of it happening so steadily in a person's life that it takes them years to be able to put it in its place comfortably. I always like to see abductees be more spiritual, like you were talking about meditation. Those are all things that I noticed many, many, many abductees deal with. And all of the abductees who deal with their experience well seem to all be meditators.
Right.
All of them.
Argo, give me one quick second. I just want to make a quick statement to everyone that's watching. I apologize. Robert earlier raised his hand, and I really got into the conversation with you, so I didn't get to him. Robert, if you're still watching, if you can log back in, just raise your hand again, and then I'll cue you in. I apologize. We really got into the conversation, and you slipped my mind. So, but anyone else that wants to also speak, please simply tap on the raised hand, dude. It'll tell me that you want to speak to me. I'll unmute you, and then we can chat. But if you're here to just use Telegram to listen, perfect, no problem. Okay, Fab.
Yeah, I
22
can
wants
let
to
you
also
go
say
if you
something.
need.
No, I just
Yeah,
want.
I
I
can
had
let you go
somebody
if
in
you
the
need.
queue that just had left, and I just wanted to say that I wanted to apologize that I missed them.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Well, Argo, let me get to Fab 22. If you're still there, I'll get back to you if there's no one else that raises his hand afterwards. Is that okay?
No, I'm going to go ahead and jump over to YouTube and just listen to the rest of the show. I appreciate you giving me some
Okay.
time to
Well, no,
speak to you.
I
You're an
didn't mean
intelligent
to
guy,
cut you
and I've
off.
been waiting to speak to you. No,
Okay, good deal.
no, it's quite okay.
All right. Well, yeah. Please, simply tune in every Wednesday, and I'd love to talk to you and anyone else that, for this matter, that wants to log in. I always love people from different perspectives, because I guess that's how we get to the bottom of things, right?
Yep, that's correct. Okay,
All
good
right.
night.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Yep.
Fab 22, you are unmuted. Unmute yourself and please go ahead.
Hi, Adnan.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. You can finally hear me loud and clear. It's a good change.
Yes, I know you told me Fab was in Telegram the half hour before I go live. I usually turn it on, and whoever happens to be there, we just chat about whatever. And so, yeah, and I noticed you had your mic, and I can actually speak to you this time. Last time you sounded like a robot. I thought you're trying to learn a new binary language.
Yeah, no, it's really me. I'm not a robot, and I'm not far away.
That's good.
So
You
there
still
you
in
go.
France?
Once again, I want to say, pardon?
I was saying, are you still in France?
Yes. It's still there. 3 o'clock in the morning. It's doing fine.
Okay,
Once
good deal.
again,
Well, thanks for
thank
being
you
on.
for. Well, thanks to you, to make that possible, and also, I guess, thanks for your wife as well. That seems to be like holding the show in the shadow. Everything goes with teamwork. So thanks to her as well, on all the other people that help.
Well, I didn't want to put too much on her, but at least she can watch it. And if something goes off sync, she can be texting me and say, "Hey, you're off sync," and then I can look at my stuff. Otherwise, I have a ton of windows going on here, and just don't want to get into the technical aspect of it. So if something goes wrong, it would be like, which one of the 101 things is not working right? And so she's usually my first kind of like the buzzer that says, "Hey, something is wrong." So I appreciate her doing that, because there was no way I could add more to, "Hey, take care of this kid that's constantly hungry, take care of the other kid that's also hungry and screaming, oh, and also I need your help." No, at least she can just watch this for entertainment and occasionally check to make sure everything's running smoothly. So anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to digress, but what were you calling about, Fabricio?
Oh no, it's not digression. It's all about teamwork. What disappointment so far about this so-called disclosure that we're getting on the American side. It's been a bit of a cold shower, indeed. And by the way, it's been the same here as well in Europe. It's there's a lot of noise being made, and as soon as you start to focus onto it, you realize that it's just just a bit of a joke, really. What a shame, It may look like actually that part of the greater disclosure might be coming from Russia, from Russia, by the way. But they seem to be a little bit muted as well down there. The real purpose of communicating with you and is I'm a little bit confused about this divide, that seems to be happening right now between the people that have experiences. So we know that it's happening. There are people that have ideas about it, that have opinions. On the other scale of it, you have people that either don't care or don't believe or in denial or etc. And in between that, we've got a government, right? And it seems to me that there is a sort of divide that is happening right now between those three factions at a time when we really need to pull all that together. Right. And I'm noticing with a lot of comments, the government is this, they're lying and they're hiding. And it's true, they've been lying and they've been hiding, right? But it comes a point, especially our time where there's a little bit more information coming out. There's a little bit more of awareness going out. And although this report has been very disappointing, there's been a lot of awareness from people coming out of that. And let's not forget as well, but it was a preliminary report. There will be more coming up.
Right.
So,
but can I just say something real quick before you continue? The good news is they didn't deny it though. That was the biggest part. I think that's what they didn't say is what speaks the loudest to me. Is that I think I can almost want to say, consider this like the very beginning of the soft to hardcore disclosure about aliens, because if this went the other way to where they went back to the usual, no, this is nothing here, that would have been just back to business as usual. But this is very big. I mean, it's the smallest things that speak the loudest, in my opinion, really. Because it's like, of course, I wanted them like full on disclosure, tell everything what I know, but I don't know how big of a shock that would be to everybody. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say regarding that. Please continue.
Yes, absolutely. You've got a good point. Maybe it was just a little stone thrown into the water, to see what sort of wave is going to come out of that. Maybe just preparing for bigger news. We don't actually really know. However, in that, it seems that with comments that I'm seeing and getting from other people, that there is a divide, that's starting to happen, between the believer and the non-believer, and the things in the middle. There seems to be clan going on. Some sort of yin yang, some opposite, in views. At the time, really, that I do believe and I do think, we all probably need to get together, rather than getting views and opinions that are going in a divergent way. And that was it, and
well,
also,
right. No, I agree with that. I mean, there's always been a divide, but I've also noticed, but we always could come together though during the meetings that I used to go to. I mean, I'm not so much now, and even I wouldn't say that Argo and I were divided too much and stuff, but at least we could talk. Right? He had one opinion, I had a different opinion. We kind of go back and forth. At least I wouldn't call that too much of a divide, because that's just different ways of coming up to these different understandings. And so we were able to exchange these ideas, right? Whereas there's other divides happening in the world to where there's no exchange of ideas between the two groups whatsoever. It's just my way or the highway type mindsets. So as much of divided the group is, because I know there's always the especially at conferences, I hear it all the time. The nuts and bolts joke about the experiencers frown upon the nuts and bolts guys, and so, but they're all going to the same place. They're all under the same roof, listening to the same lectures, exchanging ideas. So I although it may seem so divided, at least they're not to the point to where they will not talk to each other whatsoever. That could be the worst case scenario, I think.
Yes, indeed. And I'd like to be a bit the devil advocate.
Sure.
I'm not really a pro-government person. Far from it. I don't even vote. It's to tell you. But it seems to me that what if it's just a maybe? If there is a real threat, right? Wouldn't it be good somehow, to be prepared in some ways? That's being a question.
Hold on. What did I miss? I'm sorry.
What I mean by that, is as I've had quite a few experiences, etc. Most of them have been fairly good. They've been enlightening. I've had 2 or 3 that are not quite like that at all. However, my point of view is it seems to be in the positive, right? When you get the overall of it, right? However, just in case, but just maybe, there is a real threat, wouldn't it be good, to somehow be prepared in some ways, right, to actually meet that threat, just in case.
Well, that's a good question, but this is just in response to that. Like, I get the point. What I've experienced about the specifically, like, this was a specific out of body, because remember it, when I tried physical contact, like I was scared me absolutely shitless, so the out of body was a lot easier to make the contact. The ships and the abilities of those, it's like, what are we going to prepare against? I mean, the power is literally magic to us, and so it's like, what I'm trying to understand here is like, even what can we possibly do to prepare? For one, there's absolutely nowhere you can hide on the planet. The vibrations that each one of us gives off, and the ability of them to tune into each vibration, they can find a fly anywhere on the planet. And not only that, what kind of weapon could you possibly be using, that they just can't, that they wouldn't be, automatically neutralizing, and it's like, the thing is, some of the accidents, I call them accidents, that have happened, they, and that seem like they've had effect on their ships, like radar and all of that, which, mind you, I found out they fixed that problem, and the thing was, let's say that some of these accidents that have occurred might give the government, earthly government, an idea, say, oh, maybe these weapons have actual physical, effect on them. Let's use more of that. That was just an accident, there wasn't an accident, in the sense of, that there's nothing to be gained from this. The Roswell crash, I believe, was an allowed crash, in the sense that the beings understand what life is like, and they simply just offer themselves to have this crash, and the bodies and whatever else occurred, for them to be able to say, oh, there's something here, let's prod on them, let's figure this out, and all this other stuff, and they feel confident enough to even leave ships behind, because they know we will be, too far behind to actually figure out how they actually fly. So what I'm saying is, it's a good point to even just try to be prepared, but prepared how is my question. It's like, against somebody, it's almost like, a baby and a Mike Tyson going into a ring, to fight. It's like, what,
Yes. I totally get you. My point of view here was not to actually develop technology, to have a futile hope, of overcoming all this, right? But it's more on a psychological point of view, of having some sort, at least, of being relaxed enough, or having something in your hand, even if it's not going to do anything, that you can be relaxed enough, right, to be in a situation that you can participate in some sort of communication. It's a little bit like you want to have to go deep sea diving, right? But there are sharks in there. Right, there's nothing you can do against a shark, while you're swimming. But if you put around you a cage, a steel cage, at least you can be in that environment, and then develop some sort of confidence, to be in that environment, and maybe, even have communication. I mean, I don't know what sort of communication you get with sharks, but at least you can be there, see what happens, get some sort of feedback, in an environment that you feel that you are at least psychologically safe.
Well, you know what
Right.
I'm not 100% sure on this. I'm gonna try to confer, and I'll see, even because just recently I've started meditating again, just to get back into more of like the way I live my life. I just simply stopped kind of asking questions, and I just would live it. And whatever direction I happen to go, just because it's my excitement, I end up at the right place at the right time to do what I need to do. And so I've just kind of let my life be, that miraculous in that way. I personally love it, but I wanted to have more direct feedback. So I've just recently started meditating again to get myself in that old remembrance, to tap into those frequencies to where I can start getting some answers back. And sure enough, now I'm coming up this Friday, I'm going to be talking to Brad Johnson. I don't know if he might channel Adronis, but damn it, Fab, I forgot what I was going to say. The point I was trying to get at here.
You were talking about synchronicity before.
Right. I was
Synchronicity,
talking about
living in
right.
the moment on getting
Oh,
some
yes.
sort
Okay.
of,
I remember now. So anyway, this is what I was trying to get at. Regarding contact itself, that there would be a specific group, possibly a specific group of people that would make contact and sort of kind of like be like the first people who like, oh, okay, we made contact, and then they would then invite others to kind of slowly come in and then say, hey, meet so and so. It's kind of like creating these little gatherings or meetings to where now contact is not going to be forced on everyone, because some people, it would be like, hey, I heard at this place, at this location, so and so, they're going to be there, let's go. Do you want to go with me? And so it would be like very slow progress and process to kind of get acquainted. And so that was an idea that was kind of given to me by a friend of mine long time ago, and it seemed plausible at that time. It just when something just rings true. Now I have no proof of that. I have absolutely no proof of that. But this was what was initially, when he was talking about that, it was just kind of like, that makes perfect sense, because these different people that had already tried to make contact, have been working with these different frequencies enough to where, even I wouldn't be surprised that the aliens already haven't figured out just the right, I guess, hybrid that has a low enough frequency to ours to where they can simply just, be amongst us and not even know it. And so that one day, could be whatever, your friend at work, and he'd be like, hey, I'm an alien, and it's like, I'm here for so and so. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that hasn't already been in progress for several years. It's like, I just wish I would have that, that more direct information. And now I remember why I was trying to tell you that. So I've been trying to get back into my mode to meditate, to get more information regarding that. But until that happens for me, I'm going to have guests on that could directly speak on that. They could directly speak on like Brad Johnson coming up this Friday, the channel Sojourners, about, okay, what is there a plan? Is there a specific plan made by these different alien groups to make contact? If there's so many different alien groups, and let's say you subscribe to the idea that a lot of different one of us has a different connection to each one of them, how do you kind of make this communal contact? Is there going to be one race at a time? Is they all going to connect their earthly relatives immediately? Or whatever that process is. And so I'm going to definitely ask him now. I'll do my best to remember it come Friday. And I hope if I do forget, please tune in and ask him yourself too, or remind me, or write it in chat, or whichever. But that's something that I could definitely ask him about, regarding that.
Yes, indeed. It seems that that there are probably different kind of, let's call them races, different types of beings with different type of dimensions, to put earthly words, in something which is way beyond our comprehension. What I know personally, I've been in. Well, let's go with it. I've been with 3 different type of interactions with three different situations, three different kind of let's call them craft or spaceship or whatever you want to call it, right? With three different kinds of beings, right? And it seems to me that they are interconnected, but also from different points of view, you know, from different realms, if you'd like. Right? I get that impression that is when you actually come back, and when you come back here, yeah, depending on what craft you are into or onto, depending on what type of being you're actually interacting with, you know, when you come back, your physical and your mental state is different. What I mean by that is you can go into a specific type of craft, you know, let's call it A, and when you come back, you know, you feel quite fine, you know, it's just like nothing happens, right? And then you can go into another type of craft, right? It's called type B, for example. And when you come back, you know, your interpretation of the experience mentally is totally different. Right?
Yeah.
It's been altered, it's been changed, it's been through different things. And when you got a type C craft, if you like, when you come back, then your own physical being is not well at all. What I mean by that is you actually sick, you know, you don't feel well, you lethargic, I mean, some crazy thing happens to you. I remember one day, you know, coming back up, coming back down, you know, I'm basically lying on the ground for 2 days, you know, totally paralyzed, not able to move with the first, anyway, all this kind of, it stopped, you know, which is a good thing, right? So yes, you know, it does seem that there is a sort of interaction between all that, right? And there are some situations, right, that it is possible for us physically, mentally to interact with, right? And there are some situations, right, but we cannot do that, right? Because perhaps, you know, the energy field that there is, you know, on those craft, you know, is quite different from our cellular mode, right? Or the way that we can communicate, you know, on the mind level is actually quite different, right? So some people are being taken up physically because they can cope with that, right? And some people actually go through those experiences through, let's say, lucid dreams, from out-of-body experience, because perhaps, you know, it's perhaps, and just perhaps, right? I'm just talking from my personal experience, because the situation is that it is not physically nor mentally possible to be there on the face-to-face sort of situation, right? And, you know, I can see from the comment, you know, quite a few people are saying, oh yeah, I've been asking, you know, please meet, I want to be there, etc. And I think that demand, you know, is probably taken into consideration, but we also have to take in consideration that perhaps our physical structure and our mental construct, you know, will not actually cope with that. And if you force the issue, right, when you come back, something uncomfortable is going to happen. And actually quite a few cases, you know, with contactees, you know, when they've been taken aboard and they come back, actually the people that have been, or the things or the beings that have been contacted with actually have to come back, right? And actually abduct, you know, it's a term I really don't like to use, by the way, abduct that people to actually fix the problems, right? The physical problems that occurred because of interaction.
Right. No, you make some good points. No, you definitely make some good points. I know personally, the physical experiences, it was, I don't know, it made me feel like I was going crazy, you know, because it was a lot easier for me to, you know, let's say interact out of body and when I go to sleep or through, you know, through specific, I guess what I call the 15 symbol meditation that Bashar had given. It was a lot easier for me to interact that way instead of going through the physical, because it made me feel extremely paranoid, you know, seeing it coming at me. Not only that, it was like this this feeling of paranoia, anxiety, high anxiety. And not only that, in addition to the environment around me being really weird, like the earth's just becoming wavy, not like a mirage, but I'm talking about the actual ground I'm standing on, like it became lucid, and
Yes.
that was my experience in that. So I can definitely vouch regarding that kind of attempted contact. It's like it was hard to deal with enough. Now of course I kind of got over that quickly, and as I've mentioned earlier, it's almost like I've built myself up to that point to be able to just keep at it and not lose my shit, to basically to where I can still function. Because I can definitely see some people how they would be traumatized about this for the rest of their lives if they've never been in this kind of environment before, to where they would
Yeah,
it would be difficult.
absolutely,
It would be
absolutely, yes.
difficult to work. It would be difficult to just drive, and all these other things, because you almost would have like a permanent version of PTSD. If do you know what that is,
Yes, indeed.
PTSD? Okay, yeah.
Yes, of course. Yeah,
What do you say
post-traumatic
about
syndrome.
that? Do you have any opinions on what I was just saying?
I
Would you agree?
totally agree with you. Adnan, I totally agree with you. I think it needs to be worked with stages, with palliative. Some people, they sort of have this sort of interaction, from let's say birth or very very young, and it has progressively worked out to a stage when you can actually make sense of it,
Yeah.
on an adult point of view, on an adult perspective, right? And if we keep at it, right, after that, there are signs, that will basically more or less prove, like physical proof, that all this is just not a big dream, an illusion, you're going mad, etc. Right? But there is a sort of a time processes here that needs to occur. It needs to be palliative, and then one day, who knows, you're going up and you're coming back, and there you go, you got a physical scar, right? You've got a
Right.
physical proof, that something happened, right? Or you actually meet, the next day, a person that you saw, a human person, somebody that and then you look at that person, and that person looks back at you and goes, "Oh, you were there last night, weren't you?"
Right.
Right? And then after that, describes. Usually, it's not the same experience. That's the funny thing. But it's still the same environment. And the overall picture of the experience is the same. And then you go, "Oh my God, I've been up. See this person came back." Right. And then the next day after that, I'm meeting that person. That person, tells you, "Well, listen, I was there, I was dreaming about you." I'm going, "No, it wasn't a dream." Right.
Right.
And if that would happen just on one spot, on one go, the physical scar, the "Oh yes, I've met somebody," it is quite probable that the mind, the construct, the subconscious and the conscious, could not actually cope with that, and after that you diverse into some sort of theories, and you're really going off track. So I totally agree with you. I don't think those interaction that we have with the non-human beings, happen all at once suddenly. "Oh, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
illuminated. Take me aboard your ship. And then I will know all there is to know on that." They are palliative. They are little situation, but slowly you get into it.
Right. Well, Fabrizio,
That's
thank
what I
you very
wanted
much
to know.
again. I'm glad you were able to connect. Was there something else you wanted to share? Because I was actually thinking about then just making it doing,
Time to go.
quitting here. If you, unless you have something else to share, then I'll happily listen, and I'm sure everyone else would too.
No, I will respect your time frame 100%. It's been like more or less, I can see 2 hours. And once again, thanks for your effort. Thanks for all what you are doing. There's very, very much a need of all this going on. And once again, I will reiterate the point why actually talking to you live, etc. Is to be very careful not to participate, not to get into that divide. I still see it as a divide. Us versus them. information that we get in the middle, from government, from a special expert like David Gray, or Dr. David Gray, or Nolan, or Jacobs, or David Icke, etc. And not to get too much into it and form an opinion, because it's just an opinion, unless you're an experiencer, all this is just an opinion. And not participate in that, but on the contrary, try to formulate a sort of a vocabulary, a sort of way of expressing that we more gather everything rather than forming opinion that ultimately will be divisive. And then those divisions are going to be used with some people that have an agenda which is not of togetherness.
Right. Thank you for that, Fabrizio. I appreciate that. No, I'm glad that anytime someone can just remind others to just, hey, let's just all chill, and not be so harsh,
Yes.
with each other, helps. Even if it's just a quick mention, because it's sooner or later. I'm hoping it's just kind of like all these small reminders gonna chip away, at people and get through whatever barriers they put up, they create that divide, but thank you again. I'm if I had like here in person a producer of some sorts that can take over the functionality and the checking and the reading of this because basically I'm doing like 3 things at the same time. I'm checking the stream, making sure the audio is flowing while I'm looking at the comments, oh, and by the way, I'm supposed to have a meaningful conversation with the person speaking to me. And so I can do that for a fairly long time, but I noticed 2 hours is kind of my limit, and I start losing focus. And then I'm not going to make a good host for that, because otherwise people would be talking about stuff and I go, huh? What? I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What did you say? And that's just unacceptable, And so that's right around. I figured right around 2 hours is like my mental limit to produce and have a conversation before I can kind of wedge out and kind of lose that focus. But anyway, but thank you.
I surely hope that you will, find someone that that can help you with that. And indeed, you're doing a great job. You're doing much better than I could. I think I would saturate after half an hour doing what you're doing. So good going, Adnan. And it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, same to you. And I hope I talk to you again next week. And thanks again for tuning in. And also, I want to thank everyone else for tuning in. I appreciate you for being there. I'm sorry I couldn't. It looks like you guys had a very lovely conversation or lively conversation online. And so I'm sorry I couldn't get to some of your questions there. But please tune in for this week on Friday. I'm going to be talking to Brad Johnson. Probably tomorrow morning, I will set up a stream link that will be set up and ready to give you an idea of where you can tune in to watch it. So I'm kind of looking forward to it because we'll be able to discuss more alien related things. And like I said, I don't know if he can channel Adronis and to bring forth some information, and he's been doing this for so many years, he probably would already know to some of the answers to the questions I might have, and maybe some of the questions that you might have. But anyway, please tune in on Telegram or in the chat. Telegram, when it's time for Q&A, I can just bring you in and have you speak to the guest directly and ask them questions. And I hope you can keep it short. Just get to your questions so that we can take as many questions as possible. And I might switch back and forth between chat and Telegram. But everyone else, again, very much thank you for logging in, for spending your Wednesday with me. I hope these things are at least entertaining, if anything else for you. It's supposed to have this feel of us just basically hanging out online, chatting about UFOs, aliens, and sharing opinions. So I hope you find that worthwhile for you. So thank you again. Have a good evening. Hope to see you Friday, and you guys take care.